Okay, before this video actively starts, I would like to say that this is just, something I'm doing for fun and not for any other purpose, and that this is not scripted, this is not heavily worked out, this was just a whim kind of thing, and it had been suggested on my amino to do so. So that is what this is, and I hope that I do more things like this in the future. Thank you. Okay, hello anyone who is crazy enough to be here. I am here demonstrating a form of, anthropomorphic anatomy, specifically of a griffin, because that is my personal favorite to do, I guess. This is completely unscripted, but the first thing I always do, I'll be including tips and tricks, and this is just a personal preference on how I draw kind of thing, but the first thing I always do is I go into my photo library, find my rough sheet, and just place it in some corner, and this is all in IBIS Paint X, which is free. And then I grab a big felt tip pen, preferably hard, unless if you have a stylus then I would do soft, but currently my stylus is charging. So this is all just done on a tablet, and I start off with a circle, sometimes I do the crosshairs right after I do the circle, sometimes I do it later, and then I draw the action line. An action line here, let me change the color for my little added bits and tricks and tips. The action line, I always try to make it as curved as possible without it looking crazy. So just naturally curved, and this is a pure circle, even though we know that, heads aren't pure circles. And then I switch back to my green and get rid of those red lines. And then, wrong pen. And I grab the rib cage, or I draw it. I personally do my rib cage just like that, but you can also do it more like this, or that's huge, but you know what I mean, or you could just do a circle, but I don't do those. I do more of a triangle just because that's my art style, and then I do a rounded off, not square, rectangle for, the hips, and that's too big, so all I do is take a lasso and I adjust it. Keep in mind the lasso is your best friend, the eraser is your best friend, and the undo button is always your best friend. I actually use it a whole lot. Then I connect those lines and draw out the shoulders and the cheek floofs and the ears. This is just going to be a standard, standing kind of averagely, I guess. How do you say that? Averagely? Average way? I don't know. It's just the most basic way I know how to do posture. Oh, I just woke up, I'm sorry. And then I do digigrade legs, that was way too curved. And then that's way too tiny. Sometimes I just do like that if I can't seem to get it, and then, though I do highly suggest doing the lines like I was trying to show you, but apparently I'm having a tiny artist block, which means that I can't do those kind of things at the moment. That's my form of artist block. Then another thing is that I'll grab a red again and put an X right here. Pretend that's on the back side. And that is where your tail comes out, and your tail's connected to the spine. And so the tail goes around in whatever way you want it to. Sometimes I make it like touch the top of the head. That's one of my favorite things to do, because, you know, I have a derpy character, so that's just what I do. And then, though other people might suggest it, I never do straight up spheres for the arms. That was way too big, but I never just do that for the arms. I always do straight lines, just because I feel like it's more accurate. And for the bottom part of your arm, I always do more curvy lines. And see, I feel like the arms are too big, so I just lasso them. And you could lasso multiple things at a time, though I don't suggest it, but I'm doing it for the quicker way to quicken things up, I guess. And that's how I start off my sketches. Now, just because I'm having a bit of artist block, I am going to delete this particular sketch, but we'll use this one as an example, actually. First things first, let's see, do I still have my line art? Yes. Or not my line art, but this part, the skeletal. So, let me get rid of all the other lines, all the other layers, and that's just how I started it out, just like what I showed you. And then, you know, I made it go to like probably 40, I think, is what I usually do, and then I drew the line art. And then on top of the line art, I did the coloring. Keep in mind I had the ref sheet right there the whole time. And then by that point, I got rid of the skeleton, and I did the shading. And so you gotta keep in mind to color like the whites of the eyes and everything. So, you know, one tip and trick I do to make sure that it's all covered is on the very bottom layer. I just grab a huge pen in whatever color I want and make sure that everything's colored by going behind it. And in this one, everything is colored, and this is just a quick sketch that I have for like my future animations and whatnot, you know. And I hope you'll see more of that later. And then another cool thing about IVI's Paint X is that I'm going to get rid of the ref sheet in the bottom though. It does always screen record what you've drawn and how you do it. So this is how I did it step by step. So you see, the lasso is my best friend even when I'm not explaining things. And with the line art, I did a lot of erasing, and when you hit undo, you can't see in the recording what you've undone, unless if you're recording it like how I am at the moment, not how I did for this one in particular. And then for this one, I was trying a no line art thing, but I gave up after the head because it looked blocky, and I felt like this was the wrong, you know, posture and whatnot to do it, which is okay. You try new things. If it doesn't work out, you know, you could try again later. That's okay. And this was also a really quick sketch, just that way I could repeat it later, so that way I could add it to some of my animations and whatnot. And so you'll probably be seeing that drawing a lot. And then another recent one I have is this, which is not my best, but it is quite anatomically correct, so I use this one as an example. And it took just a little bit longer to make. I usually do my drawings really quickly because I have lots of commissions going on, which, talking about that, I will pull up how I do my commissions, because that is another important thing about being an artist. And so, you know, I just did the basics. In this one, I put another dark green coat on top, just to clarify, because I felt like that light green wasn't really cutting it out as well as I wanted it to, which that makes it take a little bit longer, but I feel like it puts a little bit more effort into it. And then, I color with just a base coat. I make sure that everything is the right color based off the ref sheet, and I make sure that the character looks a little derpy because that is, who they are. And then you're going to want to blur anything that needs to be blurred, like with this character in particular, the green fur, when it touches the brown fur, it mixes, which is something that you don't see in a lot of designs, and I did that all by myself. And I like that. That's the kind of thing that I like. And then for this one, I'm going to pause it and let you know exactly what I did for this one. I put on a layer on top of it, and you could see the lasso around the character, and I put a dark brown on top, and that would be my shading color, and black to make it a bit darker, but that's not straight black, that's off black. It's like it's more of a really dark gray. And then I grab a textured pen, and wherever I want to highlight, I erase the shadows, so that way it gets that textured fur look. And then I do the background if I so desire, and then it just looks like that. And now finally there's this one, which has already been uploaded to my account. It's a commission, and this is how I did it. So first things first is I wrote out what the person wanted, which was that ref sheet spray painting a Green Day logo on a brick wall. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that I did not enjoy making this one because of the ref sheet they gave me. It was a decent ref sheet, as you can see, but it wasn't what most artists will require. I usually make it so you have to see front and back, but I hadn't been getting a lot of work flow, really, so I let it slide this time, but most artists will not accept a one-sided ref sheet or a one perspective ref sheet. Usually you have to have front and back, let alone front, back, side, and all different angles. My requirement is just front and back at least, and a bit of a description of your character, which this person did not give me anyways. But, as you can see, I took the job. It was something I had to do in desperation. And in this case, with the spray paint, because they weren't paying me full price, instead of doing it from complete scratch, I just took the photo of the American Idiot album cover, and then I textured it a little bit and shaded it so it looked like it's been spray painted. I mean, it could have been a whole bunch better if they didn't, kind of mess with me in that sense, where they talked me down, and so, I was a bit petty and did it like that. But, if you're still working on textured art, that is how I suggest you do things. It's not bad to do it that way. It's just not how I usually do it. And then, so I just did the rest of the shading like I did in the last drawing. I always exclude the eyes because I feel like the eyes have to be the natural color, but that's just a me thing. And then on this one I added a colorful shadow, which is what I suggest. I usually do purples or blues if it's a sad painting. I never ever use black. Also, that text above was just me watermarking it so that way they would pay first before they got the finished artwork, because I've had people run off with it before. So that is how I do my artwork, and I hope you enjoy.